Hey everyone, this is Chris from Select Start Press. I'm joined today by Guillermo Vizcaín. Did I say that right? Vizcaín?
Vizcaíno.
Vizcaíno, sorry.
Yes.
Guillermo Vizcaíno from Lienzo, the studio that brought you Mulaka. It's available right now on Steam,
uh,
PS4, Xbox One,
and Nintendo Switch.
and the Nintendo Switch. That's where I played it.
Excellent. Yeah, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Also, the Humble Store and GOG. You can find it there as well.
Okay, awesome.
Perfect. Yeah.
So, how are you doing?
Great. I'm really happy to be here with you, talking a little bit about Mulaka and the studio and myself. Always a pleasure. And thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into all the success of Mulaka and Lienzo and how you guys are really branching out as a formidable studio, I want to talk.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I want to talk about you guys, or about you specifically. Like,
Right.
walk us back. What was it like growing up as a gamer? Well, how did you get into games, first of all?
Okay. Well, I started gaming fairly late in my early childhood. I had this one cousin that had an SNES, and he had this. I don't endorse it now, but he had this not very legal version of it where you
Yeah.
had like 1,000 games in it, and you could play
like an emulator?
everything. Come again?
Like an emulator?
Yeah, absolutely. And we would just spend hours and hours just playing, and I just fell in love with it entirely. And that one Christmas, I remember having like, oh, please, Santa, give me an SNES, just like my cousin and whatnot. And Santa got it all wrong, and instead of getting me an SNES, my parents got me an N64,
Oh, okay.
which was definitely an upgrade.
Yeah. I was gonna say oh, that's not so bad. I thought you were gonna say I don't know,
Yeah, no,
some other console.
yeah, no. I got an N64, and it was just awesome. And my first two games were Pokemon Snap, which was
Yeah.
great because it was a perfect introduction to the whole 3D aspect of
Yeah.
the 3D gaming realm, and Ocarina of Time, which
Yeah.
to this day it's my all-time favorite. I just love that game to death, and I guess that was the one that really brought me into the whole gaming thing because it's a game that really uh, delves into the story and really gives you a very clear message of what gaming was capable of in terms of storytelling and also mechanic wise. And it was one of the first real 3D games thought to be 3D from the get go and stuff. So it was just fantastic. And from there on, I just became addicted to
Yeah.
to this whole gaming thing. And from there, I guess that was my introduction to gaming. Later on, as in terms of professional, wanting to do this for a living, I was at a loss, and when I was studying my career and stuff, I got a mechatronics engineer. I have nothing to do professionally in that sense. I don't really have studies on games in any way. I should specialize in robots and stuff. And I remember this one day when they announced the Xbox One. I was doing I had a homework about doing some modeling, some piece modeling for CAD and stuff like that. And I remember I needed to do an exploded view of some pieces. And when the Xbox One reveal happened, they did that with the box, right? Like, oh, this is the box, and this is what you can see inside of it. And that was the first time that I said, oh, what I'm doing kind of sort of has something to do, I can somehow, even if just tangentially, link it to gaming. And it was that spark that really got me to thinking of gaming as something that I could do for a living. And that's when I decided that I wanted to do it. I started by myself studying programming and studying C# and getting to know Unity and stuff. And eventually things, one thing led to another, and I ended up learning about this small studio that happened to be growing in my hometown, and at the end of the story, this is where we are, Lienzo.
Yeah, so that's you jumped the gun. I was gonna ask you about your favorite game and about how you
Right.
programmed. But yeah, I got Zelda for Christmas too. I remember I got the atomic purple console that you could see through the controller
Awesome.
and everything.
I had that one too, actually. The
Yeah.
purple see-through controller. Yeah. If we're talking about favorite, I mean, Ocarina, right? That's my all time favorite because it has a very emotionally that's the game that really draw me to this world.
Hmm.
But if I had to choose, especially from that era, the 64-bit era, I would actually I think I'll choose Majora's Mask over Ocarina.
I say that like not having played the what is it, the reboot, or not the reboot, but
The 3D
yeah, the
remaster,
remaster.
right?
Um, in my mind, Majora Mask is a better game just because I remember playing it and I loved it. But I wonder if I were to go back now, how I would feel.
How would you feel? I
Yeah,
don't know. I usually play those two fairly often, once every 1 or 2 years.
yeah, and they still hold
And,
up.
and they absolutely they do. But
Yeah,
Majora's is just like it has so much more things to it.
yeah, it's a
There's the
quirky
whole
game.
time traveling mechanic and the whole interactivity and schedule taking and all of that. That's just awesome, and it's done really great, and I just love it, love
From
it, love it.
from the 64 to, you said, like Xbox One, that's a huge gap.
Oh yeah,
Are there any other kind of influential games that really stood out to you in that era,
oh
or
yeah,
in those
absolutely.
several eras?
Yes, yes, definitely. I mean, me myself, I love storytelling. That's what I
Yeah,
love about
same
gaming.
here.
It's the story part, right? So, games like Mass Effect, for instance, the whole trilogy has been
Not sure
hugely
if you
influential.
could
Games
see
like,
over there, like,
oh, awesome, awesome.
yeah, I'm already ready.
Yeah. No, yeah, no. I mean, Mass Effect 2, man, it's just
Yeah,
fantastic,
yeah,
awesome.
that's the one.
Yes, no, yeah, absolutely. Snake, Metal Gear Solid, especially the third one. It's just
Hmm.
like Snake Eater. I just love that game to death. Uh, and there's been other things, like for instance, socially speaking, Halo 3. The
Yeah,
whole
absolutely.
Xbox Live and playing with friends that are not necessarily in the same room and all of that. I think they've been influential as well. But definitely anything that has to do with story and goes in it heavily,
Yeah,
Knights of the Old Republic,
yeah,
they've been hugely influential for me as
yeah,
a player and now as a developer.
yeah, absolutely. Did you? So you said that you were studying program. No, you were studying engineering,
Right.
right? You're studying engineering, and they kind of just fused into programming on your own.
Yeah.
Um, was there any part that, like, did you intend to go into it like for a career, or were you kind of just messing around, having fun?
No, definitely as a career. I remember it was E3 probably 3 or 4 years ago with that guy actually over there, and we were talking about life and stuff, and we were on that point during your studying years where you don't really know what you want to do and you don't
Yeah,
really know where your life's headed, and you have this sudden crisis that probably all of us went through. And we were watching E3 and we were in the gaming mood, and we've always been like that, and so we just decided that screw this, we want to do this for a living, we want to do this uh, you know uh, in for real, really delve into it and do whatever it takes to be in the industry. Yeah, definitely, it was a very conscious decision of being in gaming because it's what we loved and it's what we wanted to do.
yeah. What was like your family reaction to that decision?
My family reaction was they've always been very supportive. That's been
Uh,
amazing. I have the most amazing family ever, and they've always really really stood behind me in all of this journey. The family, that's not the problem. Friends also, they've always been very supportive, but society in general in here in
yeah,
Chihuahua specifically, they don't, gaming as something that you do professionally. It's not something that people really think of as a possibility, right? As
yeah,
something that's viable, and that has to do a lot with the taboo of games are for kids and games are not like a real job, right? And
yeah,
I mean, for us that we are in the industry, we know that's not true, and we know
yeah,
that gaming is a huge industry that's growing ever more. Uh, but trying to explain that to people in here, especially people in positions of power, people with the capital to invest in something like this,
yeah,
it's a little hard, it's a little sensitive. So it was hard at first on that side, but there's always been a support from friends, family, etc. It's probably been one of the huge or the biggest motivators that we've had, and not just me. I mean, all of the studio has had
yeah,
a huge support group that kept us going forward.
yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
What was the speaking of like Mexico and the culture of gaming over there, what was it like growing up as a gamer? Like, was it there that same taboo as like a kid, or were all your friends gamers? And how available were like all of the American games?
Right. I mean, I guess being a gamer in Mexico is not that different from being a gamer elsewhere. I mean,
Okay.
it's oddly enough, Mexico has a huge
Yeah.
market of gamers. We've got a lot of people that love games in here. It's the developer side that's a little different
Yeah.
in terms of the taboo and stuff. I don't think I've ever, and I guess that has to do with when you're a gamer and when you're like us, you tend to attract people like you. So
Right.
my group of friends have always been gamers as well, and they've
Yeah.
always had this very weird outlook on life that we shared, right, in terms of games. There's always, I mean, people that won't really understand that, but I don't think it's been in terms of that taboo. I don't think I've ever encountered it on my gaming side. There's
Yeah.
always been people playing at any age, at any point in
Yeah.
their lives, and yeah, on that side, it has not been that difficult. The difficulty started when we started developing, right?
Yeah, and if anything, now it's almost like a badge of honor that people wear. Like, yeah, I play video games. Like,
Yeah, no, right. It's just like comics, right? I mean, right now, back in the day, it was like, oh, you read comic books and
yeah,
Spider Man
absolutely.
and stuff, and now that it's the biggest thing in the movie in the film industry, it's like, oh yeah, of course, I mean Batman
Yeah,
and
yeah. You're the guy saying like, well, that's different in the comics. You
right,
know?
exactly, yeah. Like, I know who that guy was on the end credits, and so.
Yeah, absolutely. So you became a programmer, or you learned how to program, and you
Right.
mentioned that you heard about a studio in your town,
Yeah.
right? So that means you weren't part of the creation of Lienzo.
No, I was not. Lienzo had already begun. Lienzo as a studio was created back in 2012.
Okay.
I joined the studio in 2015, late 2015, maybe early 2016.
Wow.
Uh, I was actually the very last one to join like the core group that is now Lienzo, right? And I heard about it probably a year prior because of again of Adolfo back there.
Hmm.
He was already in Lienzo a year prior to his waving hello. Uh, a year before me, and he got into the studio and started doing work with the studio, and he told me about there's these guys that are doing doing something about games, and they want to work on a game about the Tarahumara and whatnot. And because I knew that, I then started thinking, okay, what are they using? They're using Unity, and Unity they're coding with C# and stuff, and so that was like the one thing that I grabbed onto.
Hmm.
And so I started learning C# because I wanted to start using Unity. And once I got the grasp of how to use it and how to code, I approached them, and that was a year later,
Yeah.
and told them that I wanted to, be a part of it, right? And actually, again, I approached this guy here
Yeah.
because he is the lead programmer, and I wanted to do, you know. So generally, what you think when you go to a studio is, oh, I gotta be a programmer, I gotta be an artist, and now we know that's the biggest lie ever. But
Yeah.
back then, that's what I thought, and so okay, programming, and that's what I did, and how I approached them, and they said, yeah, sure, come on over and start working with us. Now that we're gonna be starting the real like production phase of what would eventually become Mulaka,
Hmm.
and that's how I got in, and that's really like the it was just knowing the right people and learning
Yeah.
the right skills before actually doing the approach, and from there on, I've been here.
Yeah. That's great. That's a great story too. It's just, I mean, now I'm sure you guys have a super tight bond. You've gone through the rough stuff with Mulaka.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
What?
You have to learn to love them in times of hate and hate them in times of love.
Yeah.
It's just yeah. No, we've been through a lot, so yeah, we're really tight right now. All of us, the eight of us, absolutely.
What was, or can you walk us through what like an average day as a programmer is? What is it like, or not even as a programmer, because you said you wear a lot of hats over there.
Right.
What is your average day at Lienzo like? What do you do?
Oof, man. I mean, it would really depend on what stage of the actual production we were on. Earlier on, it was mostly about, at least for me, it was mostly about artificial intelligence with enemies. So
Hmm.
designing, their state machines and their how, how is it? How are they going to behave when Mulak is there? When he's not there? How should they attack? How should we implement those attacks? How should we implement the? Should they patrol, or should they flee, or should they hide, or should they, that type of behavior?
Yeah.
Designing that, implementing a lot of the the models and animations that the art department get our way, um, dealing a little bit with new mechanics for Mulaka, like the potions or like the transformations, and how to, you know, code that into the game, and then how to put on the details, right? Like if they need a visual effect or something, that I would go in there and go, okay, it has to spawn in here, and it has to spawn this way with this rotation stuff.
Yeah.
That would be like the bread of every day. On top of that, a regular day would include maybe writing a little bit of contextual stories for whatever we were doing in a certain level, writing dialogues,
Yeah.
a lot of dialogues,
Yeah.
translating those, because I mean, we again, right, we have to make the game in both English and Spanish.
Yeah. That's
Probably that would be like the gist of it for most of production, and at the end of it, probably a normal day would include making a gazillion trailers for, you know, the launch trailer for Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, and get them to whoever needs to get them. Probably that, and obviously debugging. There's a whole lot of debugging going on, especially by the end of it.
I was gonna say that you guys, because you're a small team, I assume that the quality assurance part, the QA bug testing, is all just you guys.
It's us, mostly us, but we do have some testers that, you know, we would bring on from time to time, and they would try out the game, and we would record them, and from those recordings we'll be like, oh sure, this should have happened, or this could have been better, or whatever, and we would analyze that and then go back to our own PCs and try to replicate and fix whatever happened. But yeah, mostly it's us, you know, doing the whoops, that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Trying to fix it. Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard because it's just, I mean, programmers were just three of us, so it's a heavy load sometimes, but it's cool. I mean, it's always rewarding to find that little thing that's just not right, and you know, knowing what it is and fixing it, it's really fun.
Yeah, but then plugging a hole and then another one pops out because you fixed this one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I can imagine it gets really, really frustrating.
Everything goes down in flames. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I used to test for 2K games.
Oh, cool.
And so I worked on like BioShock Infinite and the Darkness
awesome.
2 and Spec Ops: The Line, and there was like all the NBA games and stuff like that. But they had obviously a few hundred employees, you know, just for testing.
Right.
So it's like I'm trying to imagine you guys handling all that stuff, and over here we have a fleet, you know, of people. It was just very, very different.
Right. I mean, obviously, our game is not that complex, right? I mean, it has its complexities, but it's not terribly hard. And because it's just three of us, I mean, in terms of three programmers, we all know, like, you know, I know how Adolfo writes his code, and I know how Alan writes his code, and so it's a little easier to get into whatever they wrote and analyze it, and just be like, oh, okay, if I change this here and here, I should be able to fix whatever.
And I imagine that's just makes you such a stronger like programmer, because you're able to handle or put out those fires all the time, you know what I mean, as opposed to just you're so detached from the game that you're not in it, you know.
Right, absolutely, yes.
Cool. So let's talk about the game. When you came on, was the decision already made to make a game about the Tarahumara, or did you have some say in that?
I guess no, yeah. But by the time I got in, the decision was already made. I mean, I know how that decision was made, and it's always a fun story. Because it really was, it's just two guys, right? The original co-founders, which are, again, Adolfo and Edgar, who's not here right now. It really just started like a joke, you know, let's make a Zelda based on the Tarahumara, right? And we're like, so fun, don't be dumb, right?
Really? You guys said that? Zelda on the Tarahumara?
Yeah, Zelda about the Tarahumara. And it was obviously jokingly that was said, but the idea remained, and so, you know, they started thinking about, okay, what if it's not such a bad idea, right? And let's get into the research, and let's start gathering stories and whatnot, and that's what got us in love with the culture. There was this whole process of research, right? That they can tell you way more about it than I can, because I arrived right after that, where they gathered this, they amassed this amazing amount of myths and legends and really cool stories about them, on top of, you know, asking the permissions that were necessary for, you know, taking from that culture that we're foreign from. asking the permissions to whoever needed to be asked, and gathering those myths and legends. And then, by the time I come in, the challenge was to weave a story that could, grab them all and put them into something that's cohesive.
Mm-hmm.
And explore them and put them out there in the spotlight for people to know, right? Everything in the game, it's based on that, on what we gathered. The only thing that's not, in a way, it's like the main story, the story about Mulaka himself. That's the only original part of it, right? Everything that surrounds it, every enemy, everything that you interact with within the game, it's an actual story that happened or that exists within the lore of the Tarahumara. And that was part of what I did with Edgar, and trying to find a way to really put those things together individually in a way that made sense. And that was, I guess, the decision. We wanted to do something that was a very important part of the thing. Something that's Mexican, something that really, really represents the Mexican folklore, without touching on and there's nothing wrong with them, but touching on the cliches in a way, the mariachis and tacos and piñatas and things that are amazing. I mean, Dia de Muertos and whatnot, but they're too well known, and there's so much more to tell that we wanted to have that, and the Tarahumara gave us a perfect opportunity to do that with a story that hadn't been told before, and we want to take we took that as an opportunity, right? And we made the most out of it.
Yeah, that was really the difference maker for for me, just because, like, I've mentioned before of just kind of perusing this article that I was reading, and what caught my attention was just like Mexico-based developer Lienzo, and I was like, all right, well, let me check it out. And then I see this like immense amount of research that you all did to bring authenticity to your product, right? And again, here in the United States, it's you're right. There are so many cliches, and I'm from Los Angeles, and you grow up with all those cliches, and you are those cliches too, because that's I have relatives, and they all embody so much of that. But I remember playing through the video game and being not like guilty or ashamed, but I felt weird because there was stuff I legitimately didn't know, right, about, and I was like, all right, this is cool, like, I want to research this. Like, I want to research. That was the one part of the game where they mentioned what the name of a fox is in the language, right?
Kiyoshi.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, I want to look more into animal names, and I never had that reaction in video games, or even those thoughts,
Awesome.
And so other people paid attention to that too, and I know you guys have been getting a lot of media attention because of that. That's what separates not just your game, but the studio behind it. So on that, I can't praise you guys enough for what you've done for.
No, thanks, man.
Like I said, Mexican Americans like me, it means a lot to have a game like that exists. That I can point to. Like, hey, there's this game you guys should check out if you want to see something different.
No, man, thanks. It means a lot. It really means a lot. And I mean, that it's part of the point, right? We wanted to make a game that maybe it's not educational in that sense. You don't leave the game being an expert on the Tarahumara, but we wanted to sprung that conversation. We wanted to have people play the game and then go out on a Friday night and go with their friends and say, you know what's so fucking amazing? This huge rock giant that I played in this game.
Yeah.
That type of conversation is what we were thinking about. And having a fun game that you would really have fun playing.
Yeah.
More than a game that teaches you about something. And for the outcome, for what we've seen, because again, we've been this developing bubble for such a long time that we've always had that inner doubt of, is this really going to work? Is this really something that's going to be appealing for people? And it's just blown our minds so greatly that people have been responding the way that they've been responding, and we were never expecting the media attention and all that. It's just been surreal, just so surreal.
Yeah, that's really my next question. What is your reaction to when you get calls from really reputable outlets? How do you guys feel about all the stuff people are saying about you?
Man, I don't even have words for it. It's really hard to describe, because you grow up in this. We grew up in this wanting this to happen, obviously, because we wanted to be part of, the gaming industry. We wanted to be part of this whole, IGN talking about you and
Hey,
the
you're
GameSpot
here. You're here
talking about.
now.
And exactly, and now that we're here, it's just so weird. It's just, and with our second game, right? We knew that it was going to be a hard road, and we knew that and still there's so much more things that we want to do, and things that we can make better, and we were never expecting that Mulaka would be that one thing. That's our animator, by the way. We were never expecting to have this type of reaction with this game right now, and it definitely caught us off guard. I don't have words. I really don't have words to describe just how cool this is, and how much we want to replicate it, right? Because we don't want this to be our magnum opus. We won't want this to be our peak. We want to keep going forward and keep doing better stuff, and hopefully the next one is going to be even better.
Yeah, so speaking of the future, what is next for, Studio Lienzo? What do you guys, do you have something in the works or ideas that are kind of...
We've definitely been, pitching back and forth different ideas for whatever's going to be coming in. I mean, we obviously want to keep doing this, right? We want to keep doing games that go out into mass market and really, really start making a difference and having big product that reaches large audiences.
Yeah.
In terms of the what specifically, on the one side, I can really delve into details because it's, again, very internal and whatnot. But honestly, it's very early in the conversation to really have something concrete. We have a couple prototypes that we want to be working on in the next few months. We have a couple of ideas that we've been bouncing back and forth. But what we do know is that we want to have. We haven't really decided if we want to keep on this line of cultural heavy games. We know we love the idea, and we know it has a very appealing reason to keep doing that, on top of all the satisfaction that it brings. But there's also some very cool ideas that have absolutely nothing to do with culture that we would love to start researching and whatnot. So it's still early to really say, but what we do know is that we want to make a game that's definitely better than Mulaka, right? A game that's light years better than Mulaka.
Yeah, I mean, it's just astounding too that you guys got a game on every platform. That's, you know what I mean? That's remarkable. So it lends itself well to the future for you guys because you've already established those inroads, right? With PlayStation, with Microsoft, with Nintendo.
Right.
So I know I speak for so many people when I say we can't wait to see what you guys do next. Right?
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks.
So for everybody watching, just so you know, this summer I'm going to be taking a trip down to Chihuahua with the guys from Lienzo to research them more, to find out what their myths are, their personal stories, and really, really give you guys a look at the people behind the video games that you're playing. So stay tuned to that, okay? And we'll see you soon.